Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another exciting episode. Well, this is one of those Sheen Talk Live exclusives, and I get a chance to sit down with an actual friend of mine who happens to be a phenomenal maestro. I don't even know where to start. We're going to jump right in, but he's worked with everybody. And when I say everybody. Amazing musician, composer, songwriter, band leader, whatever he's blessed me to be one of the music directors I work with here in Los Angeles. But I believe the brothers from Motown originally.
Absolutely.
Without further, the maestro himself, Mr. Herman Jackson. What's going on, Herman? How you feel?
What's happening, Troy? Feel good.
Yeah, you look good.
Yeah.
You look good. Now I have to. It's funny because when I talk to musicians, it always throws me off a little bit because I'm gonna let you list some of the people you've worked with, because people gonna be scratching their head like, how old is this cat? Because
Right.
a lot of cats you work with, some of them aren't here anymore. Some of the world famous people who've been around for years, who had just became pillars, they're not gone. We were talking about that the other day, and but you've had one of those blessed careers where you've worked with everybody from Quincy Jones to American Idol.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I started young. I left college to go on the road with Glass Knight and the Pips. Early, mid '80s actually, late '80s. They were established.
Yeah.
Grammy-winning superstar artists, and I was just a little kid. I was still a kid, really.
So
a lot of stuff went by my head. I didn't realize really where I was.
So let's go all the way back. So you're from Detroit, Michigan originally.
Yes.
So when did you actually start? When was the first time you started playing any instrument, piano or anything? When the earliest remembrance that you can?
I was so young, I don't remember. I always remember playing the piano. My grandmother had a piano. We didn't have one. My parents, we didn't have a piano in our house until I was 7. And when we got a piano, I started taking lessons pretty much immediately.
Okay.
So I was 7 when I started taking lessons. But before that, for years, I was at my grandmother's house, and I would just, be playing around on her piano all the time.
How many siblings?
I have one sister and one brother.
Older or you kind of in between?
I'm the oldest, yeah.
Okay. So were your parents musicians as well?
Yes, my mother, pianist, excellent pianist, and my father was a singer, soloist at our church, and my grandmother was an organist at my church, at our family church. My mother's mother was an organist, and my mother's father, my grandfather on my mother's side, sang in a gospel group, different church, New Mount Moriah Baptist Church. And it's like so many Mount Moriahs.
Right, New Moriah, the first
Greater Mount Moriah Baptist Church. And they had a 70-voice male chorus. And he was the bass soloist, my grandfather. And the Mighty Voices of Thunder.
Wait. The men's group was called the Mighty Voices of Thunder.
It was called the Mighty Voices of Thunder. Yeah. 70-voice men's male.
taken with the mighty clouds of joy. These were.
No, no, no.
You got
Mike
70
was the
singing.
thunder. Yeah.
Thunder.
And my grandfather was the bass soloist.
Oh, nice.
He sang the low notes. Yeah. So
He was the thunder. Granddad brought the thunder.
yeah.
He was the.
Yeah. We would we get his Lincoln. He always had a Lincoln Continental. And we get in his Lincoln and drive down to Ohio or Indiana, go to different churches down there, and they would sing. And that was one of my first musical experiences.
Yeah, what a lot of people don't realize, if you know anything about the Black culture, as you hear more or see me do interviews with any musicians or artists, 9 times out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, most of them have started their music in the church. It was the place that we could express ourselves and get close to the, music. As we know now, music is a part of our soul, is a part of our being. So there's no other place greater than in the spiritual hub, and we get to express ourselves freely. Run, jump, spit, cough, dance, shout, sing, play.
Yeah.
And it was normally at least Sunday for most people was an all day affair. So for 10 to 12 hours, you're gonna be ripping, running.
Yeah, it was. I didn't experience a whole lot of that when I was younger. We would do an hour and a half and get out.
That's good. Yeah. That was good. It was like, all right, we got other things to do. Yeah. What year? You're 7 years old. What year is it when you're 7? Now, the reason I asked this because you were born in Detroit. So prior to Motown or doing, I take it you were born right in the midst of everything.
Yes. I was born in 1965. So I was 7 in 1972. So I was in the heart of the Motown. First concert I went to, my cousin, she was 10 years older. So she was about 15. I was 7, so she was about 17. She took me to a Jackson 5 concert. No, when I was 5, actually. She took me to a Jackson 5 concert when I was 5. That was my first concert. Yeah, so it was always there. Motown was part of everything. Every part of our life was, you go to the supermarket, you hear Motown. You go to the wherever you would go, you would just hear this Motown music. And it became part of, except on Sundays. Sundays you hear gospel music.
Right.
Then Monday you'd be back to Motown. Only let up was my mother was my mother's family. Part of her family was from Canada. So she put us in the car and drive us over to Ontario, to Hamilton, where her family was. And once you hit Windsor, Ontario, then you were getting the Carpenters and groups like that on the radio. And that was the other side of what I was hearing growing up. But it was a steady diet of Motown, gospel music, and then occasionally the top 40 pop radio stations.
Yeah, you said something key that I remember Jesse Jackson saying. I was at his 75th. It was like a celebration also for Rainbow Push. And he mentioned how there was some key things with Berry Gordy. He talked about people like Larry Flint being one of the main contributors to the movement. And of course, a lot of those guys, they were into the freedom of speech. So they were pushing, the culture movement as well. But he mentioned, when they were looking to get money for the movement and Dr. King to pay his staff and all this stuff, they was like, well, it's a cat in Motown in Detroit who has a record label that gives money to help things like this. And they went and talked about Berry Gordy, and Berry Gordy was there. And he said, actually, Motown was the sound of the movement. And
Absolutely.
I watched something recently where Prince was talking about, and this was some years ago. He was talking about it. He was like, well, there's a lot of things going on politically and all this stuff, but what's happening is, he said when I came up on the staple singers and Curtis Mayfield and what's going on Marvin Gaye. He said so the push of the movement and what we needed done in society was in the music. He said the older people who had lived life were creating music. He said now a lot of the younger people are creating music for younger people. He said so the younger people haven't lived long enough to know any struggle really outside of what they go through. He said so you don't get the same trickle down. Not to get too far ahead, but I'll jump into that a little bit later as we go into the American Idol piece. But what was it? Was there a specific sound or something that drew you and said, that's it? Like a lot of times as an artist or a comedian, when I saw Raw Eddie Murphy and I was young, but I went and I could understand everything. I was like, what he's doing, that.
Yeah, there was absolutely, and it's really just, the way God works is really so amazing. I was in Detroit, and like I said, it was a steady diet of Motown. I was studying classical piano, and I was playing trumpet in school.
Mm.
And when I was 11 years old, my father got me. He would buy me an 8-track almost every week.
All right. 8-track tape, right?
Yes.
You wouldn't,
we would go to the bowling alley, and there was a guy at the bowling alley with bootleg 8-tracks in a box.
So bootleg is not new. He was at the bowling. How big your cart gotta be?
Yeah. He would come by with the bootleg 8-track, and my father would buy, whatever I wanted, whichever I wanted. When I was 11 years old, 10 or 11, I got an 8-track called "Songs in the Key of Life" by Stevie Wonder.
Wow!
And that just kind of from that record, I was able to put together all of my influences in that one piece of artwork, one piece of art. Of course, the Motown background was in there, the gospel was in there, the jazz was in there. I was just getting into jazz. The classical was in there, the pop was in there. It was all in that one, and I keep calling it a work of art because it is a work of art.
It is a work of art.
But now all in that one work of art, and it enabled me just to be able to see, okay, well, this is possible. This is possible, to bring all these things together and to be able to make music that, that makes people understand.
And how old were you?
All the genres. And, people ask me all the time, well, what kind of music do you play? I don't categorize it. I play music. I play music, and I play the piano, play keyboards, synthesizer, organ, whatever it is, whatever it takes to get the feelings out there to the people.
Get the feelings
That's
out.
But yeah, Songs in the Key of Life. Then, this is 75, 76. Almost 20 years later, I went to an audition with Stevie, and we're sitting there playing, just me and him, 2 of his pianos at his studio. And he's like, man, how do you know my music like this? I said, man, your music is the reason that I do this. Songs in the Key of Life is really the, the catalyst for all of it. So
it was Jamie Foxx had mentioned that when he got a chance to do Ray, of course, Ray was older. So he's sitting
right.
with, and he's going through, and he's like, Ray's, come on, man, can you play the blues? And he started playing some blues. So he's playing blues with Ray and trying to keep up. And he said Ray started going into Thelonious Monk. And he's like,
oh yeah,
he's like trying to follow, and he hits the wrong note. And Ray said, come on, man, why are you gonna do that? Why are you gonna hit the wrong note? He said, take the time to play the right note. That's what life is. And when he mentioned that, it was so key for me to that explanation that you said. You were 10, you got Songs in the Key of Life, and it changed everything. 20 years later, you get to audition for Stevie, and you're playing his music, and he says, how do you know my music? That means you had the notes.
Oh yeah, because I know after having worked with him for 20, 30 years that I hear his music played wrong more times than I hear it played right.
About to say.
Yeah.
So
people think that they think it's one thing, and it's just so much deeper. His music is very deep, and it's very deep musically and spiritually. It's very deep. You can't really gloss over the deepness of the spirituality that's in the music. You can play the notes, but if you're not coming from the right place, then and he's going to recognize that. He recognizes that just like immediately. So I think I would like to think that what he saw in me was somebody that loved the music and respected it. And that's all, that's all I do with anybody's music.
that's
Whitney Houston, same thing. Love the music, respected it, never let myself get in the way of. When you're an accompanist, you're in a special chair. Not like a guitar player. My job is to make her job easier, or whoever the singer is, Peebo Bryson, James Ingram, to make it, not to make myself look great. I look great by making them sound great. Right. And how do I do that? I make them comfortable. I give them the notes they need to come in. I carry them through the song from beginning to end, and treat them like a baby. Yeah, and
I never realized. Let's say, Peebo, what year did you start working with Whitney?
95 to 2001. Wasn't a long time, but it was a crucial time for her.
Very crucial. 95 was that around the time Bodyguard came out?
Yes. Yes. I was after Bodyguard came out that I started working with her. Yeah. It was the record she did when I was working with her was My Love Is Your Love.
Love
Is My Love. One of those two.
The Lord project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, just an amazing story, Whitney Houston. It's an amazing singer, amazing person, amazing musician. And I've been very fortunate that most of the singers I work with, if they aren't musicians, they are surely understand musicians. Whitney understood musicians from being around her mom, who was a great singer.
Right. And she was one of Stevie's background singers for years too, right? Sis.
Aretha. Aretha's one of Aretha's background singers.
Oh, Aretha's.
Yeah. She's singing the high voice on Ain't No Way. Aretha's Ain't No Way. The high voice in the background is Sissy Houston. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So when did the transition happen for you? Okay, you're Motown, you're doing your thing. How old were you when you left Detroit?
I was 19. Moved out to LA when I was 19. Yeah. I moved out to LA with a band, and we actually managed to get signed pretty quickly. We moved out in June, and we signed the MCA in October, and it was downhill from there. We ended up doing 2 records for MCA, and neither of them were released. John Barnes produced one of them. Then Courtney Branch and Tracy Kendrick produced the other one. I didn't really work much on either one, and I took it as an opportunity I was trying to finish school. So I went back to school, and I was going to Cal State Northridge. And we had our band, and we were doing shows around. I started meeting people, doing some sessions, and doing some other shows outside of the band. And I went to an audition for Glass Night in the Pips. And I really just went just to see, where I stood or what I needed to work on in order to become a professional and do it on a certain level. I had no expectations of getting the job.
So at this point, you're 19. You hadn't really.
I was 20, 21 by this time. Well, okay. I was 20. Yeah.
But 20. So you still hadn't considered yourself a professional musician because you hadn't had any real gigs, or?
No. I was a college student. I was working at night, and I was working a lot down in South Central LA, and I would be down there till 1, 2 in the morning, and I'd go home and sleep a few hours and make it to a 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. class at Northridge.
Wow.
And I sleep. I try to catch some sleep in the afternoon before I did it again.
Right.
That was kind of my daily schedule.
So 1985, was this the Love's Overboard album?
This is more 87.
87. Oh, 7.
Yeah.
Was this Love Overboard, or was that a little later?
Love Overboard.
Okay. So, and the Pips, of course, prior to that, they got the Last Night the Pips had a slew of hits. So you go where's the audition held?
I went to the music director's house, who actually became a mentor and like a father to me, Benjamin Wright.
Benjamin Wright, okay.
I don't know if you know Benjamin. Benjamin.
He played with Aretha too, right?
Well, he did. I think he produced Aretha, arranged for her. He was a music director. He was Glad's music director, but he did Off the Wall with Quincy. He did strings on Rock With You and Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. And Beyonce, Outkast, Justin Timberlake. DeBarge. He's done strings for all those. Earth, Wind and Fire.
Mm.
So yeah. The audition was at his house.
Now,
And I had met him before.
You had met him before?
Yeah, I had met him before. He came by when we had our band. We were looking for a producer. He came by to where we were rehearsing and listened to our band. And I remember him saying that I remember what he said. He said, "Well, I can't do anything until February. You know, I can't get to it till February." And I remember thinking to myself, I would be on the Grammys by February. What are you talking about?
You were just on yourself like, man, by the time we be stars.
You can't do it now? I mean, yeah. But that, that was youthful enthusiasm.
Right.
I chalk up to that. Yeah.
So what was his bass? He could play several different instruments. Or what makes, since we're talking about Benjamin Wright, is he still around?
Yes, he is.
Yeah. Benjamin Wright. What makes somebody a good producer in your eyes? Producer. Because a lot of times some people may hear it, and this interview will, Sheen, and we're talking about men in music, and you'll hear a lot about different artists, young and old. But what makes someone a good producer versus just a good musician?
That's a great question. And I've worked with many, many producers, Benjamin Wright, Quincy Jones, Norman Connors, lots of Paul Brown, lots of name producers. And I think that the main thing the main thing that makes a great producer really doesn't have a whole lot to do with music. It's actually being a conduit, being a go-between between the artist, what the artist wants, and what the label needs. Those can be two very, very different things. The artist, may want to do this, and this might be in their wheelhouse, and this might be the best thing for them to do. But if the record company can't sell it, then it's useless. So a good producer, and some are hands-on, some will sit down at the piano and say, hey, this is what's going to be. Some will sit in front of a computer and say, this is what's going to be. Right. Some do that. Some people hire somebody to do that. But whatever it takes to get that vision and hone that vision and create something that a record company can sell, that's what makes a producer.
So that's one of the amazing things, and I've done artist development. We talked about this, and I work with people, and I'm good with ear and I'm good with live show production. That's about it. But I think I know certain things, artist development. But then I look at the span of what I always think about Barry Gordy. I think about what he did with Hitsville. He called it Hitsville, and then he had a system of, okay, we created this song. Now let's bring in some people of different diaspora, not just us. Let's bring in everybody to listen to it, see what they think. Since we're going for a younger audience, let's bring the young people in. This is this, and let's have them vote on the song.
Right. Yeah.
You do something like that now. Everybody in the studio, they were talking to this young producer, what's his name? Scott Storch. I had no idea how much stuff the young guy had done.
Yeah, I actually know Scott Storch.
Yeah, and his life, and I've been really looking at a lot of stuff going on, but in just the ups and downs and how the monumental success and money can just take you. It almost took him out of here. So and you look at the small amount of time, you think about how quickly it happened, but also it almost killed him. But he was talking about just the working with different people, but he's a musician, and like you said, he's found that home of being a good producer. You have been able to transcend that area too, where you're not only called upon, even getting this interview, and me and Herman live in the same city, but to get the interview, he was like, Troy, somebody just called me. I was like, oh, Herman, come on. You get called on to be a musician, but also a producer by some of the top people in the industry. So you're saying the production piece that you've noticed brings the most success is really more relational than just the music.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Of course, the music has to be there.
Right.
Has to be there, but we're going to assume that, especially in the cases, record company cases, where record company has put $100,000, $150,000, or $500,000 into an artist, you have to assume that the musical talent is there. You know, we're not going to debate the musical talent.
Right.
What we can do is take the musical talent and make it into something that the general population, that as many people as we can spread it around to, we can spread that love to as many people as possible.
Right.
As opposed to making something that, man, that's amazing. And guess what? Musicians don't buy records. Musicians don't buy. So you can make something that's amazing. And every musician that you know is like, man, that's the best record I've ever heard. But no, that'll be your only record.
Right.
Put another
Piece,
200,000 in your pocket to make yourself happy.
Right, right. So what do you think?
Of course, there are artists that have been able to do that and make a living and make a career, but I like the other way.
Right, right, right. So you go forth. We talk about Whitney. Who was and you start working with? Let's go back, Tarantino. Gladys Knight and the Pips. You get the gig. First off, how did you feel when they said yes? You.
Oh, you know, that's another. Well, first of all, Gladys got sick.
Oh.
She got sick. I forget what she got sick of. It's been so long, but they ended up pushing the whole thing back 6 months. But when I got the job, they wouldn't hire me because I was still in school. They said, man, well, we like you, but we're not taking you out of school to do this gig. They really had, they really had some integrity and some, and Gladys had kids. I mean, I know her kids now. I didn't then, of course, but she has children my age.
Oh wow!
Like, I'm not taking them out of school, but she ended up getting sick, and they pushed the whole thing back 6 months when they enabled me to finish the semester. And so I was just like, I'm not going back. I'm not in school anymore. I'm not going back. So yeah, so me getting the gig was like very anticlimactic because they were like, no, well, we like you got the gig, but
but no. If Gladys hadn't have got sick, they would have got somebody else.
I would have found a way to be there. Yeah, and even then, when she got sick, then I'm thinking, she's not really sick. They really just, wanted somebody else. So
Right.
I was just learning Hollywood, and so I was like, okay,
I'll call you.
The Hollywood thing. Yeah. So but no, they called me. I got a call out the blue. Said, hey, we're starting on this date. Like, cool, I'm out of school. I'm ready. Good. Let's go.
So how long were you on tour with Gladys after that? You
We
21 years old?
yeah, I turned 21 on the first night, I think.
I don't. The first night of the tour, you legal?
Yeah, yeah. It was the start of my problems. Yeah, I was out there, and yeah. I was young, and I was making money, and I was traveling the world, and I thought I had it figured out.
So you jump out there, 21 years old, on tour with Gladys Knight and the Pips, a world-renowned group, not just an R&B, none of that, world-renowned group. And how long did y'all stay on tour the first time?
The first time we were on we might have done 7, 8 months straight. At least 6, but it might, because we did a Gladys Knight and the Pips tour. And then we went right into back in that time, they had the Budweiser Superfest.
Yep. Al Heyman.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. We went from the Gladys Knight and the Pips tour directly on the Budweiser Superfest through the summer. Then after that, we went and did some Vegas. Gladys was doing a lot of Vegas at that time. So it might have been 8 months.
Whew. So you still have your place in LA at this time?
I didn't have, I was staying with I had a roommate I was staying with, and I left. And then when we got back, I got a place.
Okay.
By myself, yeah.
And that was your first time having, I'm sure, that much money. But also, what was the work like? I know we can talk about the wild stuff that happened on the road. Everybody has those stories. But what was the workload like? Had you ever been in that kind of intense musician environment where you had to be?
No. But I enjoyed. I enjoyed all of it. It was a lot of work, a lot of times, and it was. We would be at the venue most of the day. We get there, and because we were on a bus tour, so a lot of times we go straight to the venue, stay there, sound check, eat, do the show, get back on the bus, go to the next city. And it was definitely a lot of work. Did a lot of one-nighters because, because of the magnitude of who Gladys Knight and the Pips were. Yeah.
One town, you're in Jersey.
Yeah, we do every town, every town.
Baltimore and DC. Well, at that time, I think you could do Baltimore and DC.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we went up to, went up to Seattle and came down to San Diego. We must have hit every city. 3, 4 cities in Oregon I didn't even know existed.
I sold out.
Yeah.
So you work with Dad, you work with Glass at about 22. So you come back. Now you're on. Is it kind of like you're one of the go-to? He did a great job, a musician. They're done touring. What was your next big tour after after you worked with Gladys the first time?
Well, I got back, and so I'm at home, and Benjamin, the music director, calls me, and he says, "Hey, this guy Ernie Fields Jr. is going to call you. Just make sure you take his call." And he was very fatherly toward me. So Ernie Fields Jr. calls me, says, "Hey," and I know nothing about these discussions that have been going on. Gladys was doing I think she was hosting the Black Achievement Awards, which is what it was called at that time.
Right.
This was 88. 87, 87. Um, so, and they needed a keyboard player, and they figured they were going to use somebody from her band since she was on the show. And they were going to use one of the other keyboard players, and Benjamin convinced them to use me. So Ernie Fields calls me, and I go down there for a rehearsal, and the conductor was H.B. Barnum, who I had heard of, but I didn't know. So we did the show, and it was fine. I did everything he asked me to do, and it kind of went by so fast. I didn't really, and I didn't really have a gauge on that kind of stuff of what it was supposed, what it was supposed to
be. It was a broadcast type music piece.
Yeah, award show. It was an award show. So a lot of play-ons, playoffs. Those things are going by so fast, and I'm reading them. I'm reading and playing. So about 6 months goes by, I don't hear from HB, and that's fine. I really wasn't. I went in and did the show, and it was great. And he calls me, and he says, "Hey, I need you to go to New York tomorrow." I said,
"Tomorrow."
Yeah. I said, "Okay."
Now, by this time, you what, 23?
Yeah, I was about 20. I was 23. Yeah, exactly. So I go to the airport. There's a plane ticket there for me, and I fly to New York. And there's a car driver there taking me to this hotel right on Broadway, Times Square, and so I'm in there, and I don't really know what's going on.
Oh, he doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah, he really, yeah. That's how HB is. He just like, and so I finally pin him down and say, what are we doing here in New York? He says, the Aretha fired the piano player. I said, what?
So wait, you had no clue, and I guess
when I left my house, I had no clue. No,
you had no clue when you went to New York that you were going to be playing with Aretha Franklin.
No,
and they didn't want you to know, obviously.
Yeah, I went to sound check the next day. HB had everything. Everything was written out. I went to sound check. The show was 3 nights at Radio City Music Hall with full orchestra. Yeah.
And mind you, this is this is 87. So for y'all that have no, there is no, computers are too big.
No, nothing.
There's coins and phones, pay phones,
right?
And houses.
Yes, and that's why I couldn't really get any information from him other than go to the airport and there's a ticket for you and fly to New York.
See you when you get here.
Yeah.
I see you. You get here. There is no in between. There's no telling anybody. So now you're gone. You might call your family and say, "Hey, I'm in New York. I'm doing this. I'm working with this." That's all you can say. Anybody else?
Yeah, right, yeah. So we did 3 nights in the Radio City. I was wasn't playing the piano. I was playing the synthesizer chair. I was playing synthesizers, which was real important for Aretha at that time. She had all the
Zooming,
Who's on Freeway of Love. She had a lot of pop synthesizer stuff.
No, You Were Waiting for Me, I think, was out around that time, right? Her and George Michael, maybe? Was that 87?
Yeah. We didn't do that one, but it was around that time, yeah. And so I'm there with a bunch of rented gear that I don't know, and a bunch of music that I don't know at Radio City.
Notice something that Herman said, because we're working on some stuff that's coming up. It'll be past by the time you guys see this, but you can score, read, and write music. So as long as they give you the music, You flow.
Yeah, yeah, yes. And that's one thing I didn't. Moving to LA from Detroit, I assumed, pretty much my whole child. I'm a really avid reader. I read a lot, and all of my records, I just go through the liner notes and all the
See who played on everything.
hours. Yeah, who played on what, who did what studios, and that and I was under the assumption that pretty much everybody, this is LA, this is where the big boys are. Everybody can read. And I got out here and started working, and I realized that that was not the case at all. Very, very.
So did this make you a top priority? Is this why it became so Herman? Hey, Herman.
That was a big part of it.
Reason? Outside of your demeanor, you seem easy to work with. I know you're easy to work with. I've worked with you. So
yeah. Yeah, that was a big part of it. Yeah. I'm not scared of the written notes, but I'm not scared if you don't have anything written either. I can, and there's whatever I play, whether it's notes or just from memory or just from hearing something, I just try to play from the heart. And if you play from the heart, you can't go wrong.
So, Aretha Franklin, Carnegie Hall, 3 sold out shows. I'm positive because it don't.
Radio City, yeah, Radio City Music, and she comes. We're on stage, and she was at rehearsal, but she wasn't in full Aretha mode in rehearsal. She sang, she sang great, but I had never seen her in show mode. She comes out in a pink Cadillac, and the guy drives the pink Cadillac onto the stage at Radio City, out, walks around, opens the door, and she gets out, and a bunch of balloons fly out. Yeah, that was my first gig with Aretha.
So at this point, like you said, you got money coming in, you have access. Is this when it starts getting? Is this when the limelight of it all starts hitting you? Because you're 20, you're 23, 24, 25 years old. Yes. And you're rolling with folks that have been doing this so long, it's second nature for them to say, Herman, come on over to this party.
I went to every one. I went to ones when I wasn't invited.
Right. Walked in, hey.
Let me in.
Right. So after you do the gig with Aretha, what's the next big thing you work on? Well, the next thing, everything seems to be, you're in that mode now. So
after that, this is getting towards 91. 91, 92, I did Norman Brown's first record. And I played on that. I didn't arrange or produce anything. I played on it. And it did very well. And then I went on the road with In Vogue. I went on the road with Norman. I did some gigs with Norman. And at the same time, I did a tour with the Calloway brothers, Reggie and Vincent, from Midnight Star.
Big Star?
Yeah. I went on the road with them. Their tour was short, though. Their tour was cut off. It's canceled in the middle. But yeah, In Vogue, I did a lot of stuff with In Vogue.
Now, at this time,
Norman, We started on it after the Storm record.
You're in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
This is around the time when the older male singing groups are still doing their thing, but you get this new rush of male vocal groups coming in.
Yeah. New Edition. Well, New Edition had been out for 3 years.
But Boys to Men, all of them, early 90s, R. Kelly.
Babyface, yes. I really, Guy. In Vogue, we were opening for Guy.
Mm.
And so I got to know Teddy Riley pretty well. And I wanted so badly to be part of that, but it was some of the groups. I was already working with established groups to go back and work with some guys that weren't established, even though I could see and everybody could see that they were gonna be big stars. Right. It didn't make sense for me at that time.
Because a lot of these cats were your age. Now think about it. By the time
exactly.
you might be a little older than a couple of them, but a lot of them were your age. The same age.
Yeah. Yeah. I did end up, when I was working with Whitney, Bobby was out a lot, so I ended up spending a lot of time with him. So, and I done a lot of things with him throughout the years. So, and like I said, Teddy Riley, me and Teddy are cool.
Right.
But I missed that part of it, and I played in Babyface's band for a while, so I was with Babyface for a while. So I didn't miss it totally, but that second wave of R&B, I wanted to be a bigger part of that than I ended up being.
But you were still prevalent.
I played on 2 Temptations records, so
right.
Yeah,
and
I can't complain.
Coming out of that camp, now, what year did you first get a chance to start working with Stevie? What was the year?
93.
93.
Yeah.
So, 93. So 93 would have been, what was the album before Conversation Piece?
Characters, but yeah,
so
that was 80. That was 87, I think. And the record that came out, first record was on that For Your Love. For Your Love, I Will Do Anything. What was that record called?
I almost want to say that was a part of Conversation Piece, because before that it was the Jungle Fever soundtrack, I think.
Yeah, it was after Jungle Fever.
Yeah, I think For Your Love was a part of. I almost want to say that's the Conversation Piece album. But
yeah, Conversation Piece. Yeah, I think
these 3 words big hit prior to that, right? I think.
Yeah, these 3 words was on Jungle Fever. Yeah.
So you get a chance to start working with Stevie. So you said the audition. You went on the audition first, or how did you get the call about that? We're not to everything in 1 hour. This probably had to be a 2-part, but we're gonna get to a couple key things.
Okay, yeah. I went to a friend of mine, not even a friend of mine. He's a friend of mine now. A guy in Detroit. That was actually a friend of my sister's. He was a keyboard player. Stevie heard him in Detroit.
Mm.
And his father called me. Father called me and said, "Hey, Gerard is coming out to audition for Stevie. Can you take care of him? Can you make sure he's cool, whatever?" Yeah, sure, I'll do that. Then I called Nate right after and said, "Nate, what's going on?"
How does my boy get an audition? I'm here.
Right. He said, well, Stevie's looking for somebody. Stevie wants somebody from Detroit. Yeah, I am from Detroit.
That's why I got a call from somebody from Detroit.
Yeah. So then Gerard came out and it didn't work out, and I really had nothing to do with that. But it didn't work out.
You let him
And,
do his thing before you audition.
yeah, this is before. Yeah.
Because you know, I was thinking it was like all of a sudden you drive him to the wrong place.
Right.
Run in there and pick up the Whopper with cheese. Boy,
he was looking for 2 keyboard players anyway.
okay.
So when I started, so I went to this audition. There was about 20 people there, and we played. Everybody played 2, 3 people at a time with him, just pianos, 3 pianos. We played different parts, and he said, "You play this part, you play the bass line, you play the melody," and and he kept. I would play, then somebody else would play, and then I ended up playing again.
Switch him out and keep you on here.
Then I left, and Nate, the music director, said, "Man, you got the gig, but he wants you to come back tomorrow." I said, "Okay, here goes that Hollywood thing again."
If I got the gig, why don't you just give me the gig?
I come back. So I went back the next day, and it was another different. It was me and maybe a couple people from the day before, and same thing, three pianos, and we played that. So after, and they say, "Yeah, you got the gig," and he never said to me, "He's looking for 2 people. That's why he wants you to come back to see if you would work." He never said that to me. He just said he wants you to come back tomorrow. You got the gig. He wants you to come back tomorrow. So 3rd day I come back. He's got all his synths set up, just like 20, 30 set up. And the same thing, it might have been even less people, maybe 7 or 8. We all played different synths and same thing, different synths and different songs and different parts. It's okay, well, you got the gig. Okay, cool. Then when I started, first day of rehearsal, it was me and Rodney Franklin.
Mm.
Rodney had not been to any of the auditions. He hired me and Rodney. So that was my first.
And what was the first? Was it for a tour, or was it just for what was Stevie doing at the time?
I think they were on a break from the tour. I think the tour was ongoing. It was the Natural Wonder tour, or maybe that came after. That was '95.
I was about to say the Natural Wonder tour. I remember is '95 because I remember purchasing the live CD. and I worked in the barbershop, and we played that. It was the soundtrack for the barbershop, especially when
I was
to the salsa version.
Oh yeah. I'm on that CD. I wish I had understood more about. I had a keyboard tech, and then the keyboard tech pretty much was creating the sounds for me. And as I listened back to that record, I'm like, he didn't really nail the sounds like I would have. Yeah, I would have spent more time. I wish I could spend more time getting him.
There's a lot of that sound design.
Yeah. Because after that time, I would just do my own programming. So I learned.
But you said something earlier about you can't gloss over the deepness of the spirituality in the music. So if you're hearing something that's not,
Yeah, if you're hearing something and it's not, yeah, exactly. It's not really what you want it to be, and you're trying to set a certain, you know, certain vibe, comes hard. Troy, is different when you talk about synthesizers. And that was my primary job with Stevie, was synthesizers, because that's what he playing all the piano.
right.
I'm playing mostly synthesizers, and it's just a certain point when things switch from analog to digital, so much was lost as far as depth of sound.
Mm.
And that becomes a whole nother conversation.
We talked about, as much as you, like I said, you can have a wonderful album musician-wise. Musicianship is amazing, but not sell a thing. But then coming into a place where Stevie Wonder has been able to sell in every decade.
Yeah.
And it has to do with, because he was one of the first ones to jump, I guess, between him and people like Kashif and Roger, but jumping wholly into the synthesizer mode and taking it and making it his own sound.
Exactly. Yeah. Those records he did, Jungle Fever, and then the two before that were no, Conversation Piece was before Jungle Fever was, and Characters was before that, I think. Whatever the three were.
Right. Hotter Than July, Music Aquarium, Characters was the one with
yeah, which one with the mask?
Characters with the mask. That was Skeleton. With the mask. I think Skeleton was on Characters, right?
Yeah, it's Characters. I don't even know what that means. I still don't know what that means.
And we talk about some other things, but I want to jump and talk about American Idol. How did that come about?
Oh, that Ricky Minor was Whitney's MD, and so I knew him from Whitney. He hired me for Whitney. He hired me when I was pretty much unknown. I'd been working with Stevie for a couple of years, but I was still I was just figuring it out. I was going up the ladder, and he hired me when he could have hired, Greg Filling Games, a bunch of people he could have hired, but he hired me. And we became friends, and he admired what I brought to the table. So when he was doing Idol and he needed somebody, he called me. And so, yeah, it came. I was actually the season 3. He hired me as an arranger. I wasn't even on the set, wasn't playing. I was just at home writing arrangements, and that was great. And that opened up a whole another line of work for me as an arranger, because before that, all my arranging was done mainly with synthesizers that we were talking about, because nobody was doing records with live horns or live strings.
You guys have the first. So he called you the first season.
Third season.
So by the third season, they're using a full band. By this time, they're using a full band, and they need.
Yeah, that was his first season. Was season 3, and I was doing arrangements, sitting home writing. Then he needed somebody to come play. He asked me would I come play, and what made it really attractive to me was, as much as the playing, I love the arranging part of it. He's like, well, you'll still be able to do arranging and play. So I was really pretty much the only one who was on both teams,
Nice.
the writing team and the playing team. And that, you know, that even now, a couple of years ago, I'm a long way from American Idol, but you know, occasionally the voice calls me, I do the arrangement, or some other show call me and I do the arrangement. So just sit home and sit at my piano and do it and send it in.
Now, had you now how many award shows have you MD'd a lot of award shows too, or worked with arrangements on a lot of them too?
Yeah, most of the stuff I've done with Ricky, most of it I played and arranged.
Hmm.
You know, I wasn't MD on. Well, I mean, he was MD, of course.
Now, for people that don't know what it is to arrange a composition of music that you're going to be playing, what is the main, what it really goes into it? Is it rewriting the charts and the notes? Is it what goes into arranging the music?
I treat it like I treat it like I do as a player. Just putting the right notes on the right instruments so that the singer, to make the singer comfortable, to complement what the singer's doing. And
Like you said, treat the singer like a baby, be able to carry.
Like football players say. Football players always like, you know, you got to hold the football like a baby.
Hold the football like a.
Yeah. Singers, you got to treat the singer. Of course, they don't want to hear that, but
right. But they don't know what you mean by it. You mean I'm trying to make it so you shine. Yeah. I'll let you boogie.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, talk to you soon.
All right.